right. Hey, everybody. This is Louie, and this is our second episode of GTFO.
And I'm Fia.
And so today, everybody, we're going to be talking about modern dating. So we wanted to dive into that as part of, continuing to get to know each other as well as introducing ourselves to everyone else. So one of the things I did want to go forward with is actually a congratulations to Fia. Since our first podcast, she actually got engaged. So congratulations.
Yes, I did. It's true. Thank you. Yes, I did. It's true.
Well, tell us a little bit about that before we dive into my dating life.
So I took one of the first vacations of my life and went to Central America as a girlfriend, but came back a fiance. So, third time's a charm. We'll see how it goes. But I'm excited. I've set the date out so that it's easy to remember. So it's going to be October 10th, 2020, 10/10/20. So when I'm old and senile, I can remember.
That's classic. That's classic.
Yeah.
10/10/20. Nice. Very cool. I
Yeah.
look forward to the nuptials. It'll be fun.
Thanks. I'm going to try to do it right. And I've got a couple years to make it my dream wedding. And hopefully it sticks forever,
Yeah.
which is the goal.
Of course, of course. So, speaking of marriage, when I got married, I was 21 years old. The first and only time so far. I'm 36 now, so we were married for 11 years before we separated, right? And I think I can look back on that time with pretty good respect for that time, right? I had an interesting childhood where I moved around a lot, and so I didn't necessarily feel like I had a community that I belonged to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very odd for me when I would try and date and such in high school. I actually was pretty confused when I was in high school, when I was really at those ages where I wanted to date. I felt really awkward around girls, and I thought it was kind of because I could be gay, right? And so
Oh.
yeah, so it was a very odd thing for me. I in and so when I went to college, I was like, "Oh, I'm totally going to explore this." I'm going to be, Mr. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just going to be Mr. Forward and Mr. Homosexual man about town, and I learned very quickly though that really wasn't the case with me. I wasn't really just attracted to men, and I find it very hard to connect with men, just as hard as it was to connect with women. So it was a very
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. Obviously, I would hope it would be interesting, but so there were people that I connected with over the years, and so my now ex-wife was one of those people. Um, we we reconnected. She's actually from the town where I graduated. We didn't really date when I lived there, but when we were just friends, and then when I got older in college, we had reconnected, and obviously not too much older, because then we did end up getting married. I was 21. She was just turning 20 when we got married. So it was quite some time ago. But honestly, we were a different kind of couple because we essentially wanted to do things in the right order. We got married, waited until I helped put her through school, and then I was looking at trying to complete school. And actually, I did. I completed massage therapy school, and then we bought a house, and then we started having kids. And I have to say, a big modern thing that I see happening with some couples is when you do start having kids, it's not like how it used to be. The having kids is so much more expensive nowadays, and unless you have the family support around you where someone's taking care of them and people are really there to pull on for sick days and things like that, it's extremely stressful. I mean, I can't even count the number of times that was just uh, one of the kids got sick at daycare and you have to go pick them up, and your
Yeah.
boss is looking at you sideways, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? You can't
Yeah.
just you can't just leave your kid there suddenly. Is it CYFD that or the New Mexico Children, Youth, and Family Development, is that
Yeah.
the and do you want them called on you, or do you want to take care of your family? So anyways, that's not a whole lot about my current dating status, but essentially I wanted to lay the groundwork for where I am now. The our marriage ended. We we're still, I wouldn't say we're friends, but we're on friendly terms at this point. It used to be a lot more contentious, but we are really able to have conversations now, and when it comes to the kids, we both have them first. We don't really think about the needs of the rest of the world, I guess.
How many
But
kids did you guys end up having together?
oh, good question. So we had two. Um, right now, my son is 8 and my daughter is 6. So they were just about to turn 4 and 2, I believe, when we split up. So we had
Okay.
waited. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of time with just us before we had the kids. So yeah, uh, but essentially, since my marriage ended, I've it was kind of similar actually to coming out of out of high school into college. I thought that I was like, I think that I'm just gonna probably want to be with men now. I've done a lot of I've done the domestic thing with my wife, and to be honest,
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it. It was I liked coming home to my family every day and having that that American dream. And I'm doing quotes in the air while I say that, but I
Right.
liked having that. It was something to rely on. It was something to work for. Um, I since then have I've been so I've been alone for about 5 years now, and that's a horrible way of saying it, right? Alone. I've been alone, but but I've been single, for 5 years now. Dated here or there, um,
Uh-huh.
both some men, both some women. Um, so so I think one of the most interesting things, like just kind of dive into some of the dates I did have. So I dated this one really nice lady right after we had split up, me and my ex, and she was really cool, really into me, which was that's always nice when someone's really into you. and
Yeah, it's a plus.
yeah, right, yeah, it's like how else is this gonna work, right? Um, so really into me, and then we dated. We went on a few double dates. We went out together, just us two, a few times, and we ended up. We ended up. I still remember it was like 2 months into us dating, and I'm buying her dinner at somewhere after work one day, and she turns to me and says, I just really want to get married again." And
Oh.
yeah, and I was taken aback by this because she knew, for one, my marriage wasn't even over yet. you know, we had we were separated, but and it's not, we didn't have any chance of reconciliation, but
Yeah.
it was pretty ridiculous to suddenly spring that on me that, oh, I just want to get married, like I was gonna propose, after 2 months. I had no
Right.
intention of that. Yeah, and
How'd
I
you meet
think
her?
actually from a friend. It was a great story because uh, my friend and I had gone to a Halloween party, and so we had our pictures on Facebook from the party, and I had this Superman costume that I've had for a few years, and so her friend asked her, "Can will you introduce me to Superman?" So yeah,
So it wasn't
exactly.
Tinder, it wasn't Bumble or OK
No,
Cupid or
no,
work. It was
this
networking.
this was networking, yeah. And I have
Beautiful.
to, yeah, I have to say, like, it was probably one of the best, best,
Yeah,
um, best moments I've had
just bad
since then.
timing.
Yeah, and and to be honest, I'm still, and this goes for the entire time I've been separated. I'm still kind of questioning marriage. No offense,
No, it's
um,
fine.
no offense, number three, but
Hey,
but
I know. I question it every day.
yeah. I look at it and I don't see the purpose of it in a lot of cases, and I'm not certain that I will get married again. Um, it would have to be a really amazing, to be honest, an offer essentially. It'd have to be someone who is going to help take care of me as much as I'm going to take care of them.
You'd have to
It's
have a sweet pot, a real good deal,
right,
incentive.
right, right, and that goes
It ha-
into, yeah, that goes into the many many dates I've had since then, right? Since well, and it even ties into her, right? One of the reasons she wanted to get married right away was essentially so she could be a stay at home mom. Uh,
oh
she
yeah,
didn't really, yeah, she didn't really want to be working.
classic.
Yeah, I was not too excited about that. I was like, I'm probably not your dude. That's not, it's not the right,
Right.
not the right thing. And a funny note about her, she actually ended up getting remarried about, uh, I want to say, within the next 3 months to her ex husband.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, yeah, because she had two kids as well, two little girls. They were really sweet.
Mhm.
Um, but she got remarried, and we're still friends. She just had a baby, actually, uh, and so yeah, it's an
Well, good for
interesting
her.
thing though. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I still get the stray text from her like, "Oh, what did I do?" And
Right.
I'm like, "Well, you picked your husband. You need to work on that." And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things for me that, because of my marriage's demise, and I'm not going to give all the details on this episode, but maybe on a future one, but essentially how it ended. One of the things for me is I definitely strive to respect marriage at this point. Um,
That's good.
yeah, even though I don't necessarily believe in marriage. To me, um, I I don't want, rather, to ever be the other man. I
Yeah.
find that, yeah, I find that to be pretty frustrating. So um,
Understandably. We can have a whole topic on marriage too. That'll be fun. Let's do it.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. Um, so so going back to dating, let's dive into those different ways of dating right now. So it's funny you started mentioning all those different apps, right? Because I had a have a gay friend that he's always um, kind of, not making fun of, but mocking the gay community. Essentially, he's a very what's the word, self aware person. So for example, he showed me this meme, and I don't know, maybe we can pull it somewhere from the internet, but for gay men especially, it's like gay dating now is this. Um, it was a what's the star called in a circle, like where you're
Death
worshiping the
Star.
devil.
Oh, pentagram.
Pentagram. There you go. Thank you. So it was a pentagram, essentially, with a different dating app at the apex of each star leg, and the gay man praying in the center to to find someone.
What are
Um,
what are those pinnacles? Are they is it grinder?
yeah. So there's Grinder. There's one called Scruff.
Oh.
There's one called Dude. There's There's a ton out there, really. I mean, I think um, I wanted to say there's even one called like Men, but I think that's actually a porn site. um,
It's hard to keep track.
yeah, exactly. So, and then even gay men are also on Tinder, and like Match.com, things like that. So, so I think those might have been two of them as well. So I have found that the apps don't really work for me at all. So I did try Tinder and I still have Tinder on my phone just for time killing more than anything at this point. Um, but essentially, so like I said, I thought I was going to be more with men, and then I actually did. I even turned on the app. You can swipe for either men or women, um, and so that I thought that was pretty cool. So I was doing both for a while. I had to turn off the women portion mostly because in this area, I don't know if this is everywhere, but they were all robots on the women's side.
Oh no.
It was
I feel
so
bad for
frustrating.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys have a whole thing.
yeah, yeah. Every time I would match with someone, it was it would turn out to be, "Oh, go to my website for blah blah blah." And
Right.
I was like, this is ridiculous. So, so I turned it off because for whatever reason, and this is probably going to give the robot people ideas, but for whatever reason, they hadn't had it for men yet. Men seeking men,
Right.
that those were robots. But, I met some good people off of that, but I really do feel like Tinder is pretty much looked at as a hookup app. And this isn't news to anyone, I know.
Right.
Um, but I always did think that if you put on there, I'm looking for a long-term relationship, and someone says, "Oh, do you want to fuck?" You can
And they
say,
can't
"No, I'm
leave.
looking for a long-term relationship."
That's right.
Yeah,
You're in control.
exactly, exactly. And so so that's what I was trying to do, and so I did meet a couple quality people off of Tinder. I do remember I met this really funny lady off of there. She she was still married though, and it was also pretty fresh after my split. So I was still married. She had like two kids, um, and it honestly it didn't sound like she was getting a divorce when I met up with her. So that was a little shady. But we met and just had coffee, and she would do the funniest things where, for example, she would look over my shoulder and just kind of like stare up like at the wall, and I would kind of look over my shoulder and look and see if there was something. I'm like, is something wrong? Are you okay? And yeah, and she would go, "Oh, I was just thinking about something, but I'm not going to tell you what yet." And I was, it was just bizarre. It was, and I think I'm pretty sure that that was her way of flirting, but it was just coming off as bizarre. It wasn't too sweet at that point. It was just kind of odd for me. Um, anyway, so yeah, there's some interesting things going on that site. Um, I have to say, so Grinder, I don't think I ever met anyone off of Grinder, so that's the gay. I would equate it to. I wouldn't even equate it to Tinder. I feel like it's like the dirtiest app on the planet.
I've heard of
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and I think it's like mentioned in movies pretty
Yeah,
regularly. It's pretty funny,
exactly.
but but it is just I feel like the men on there are disgusting most of the time, and I'm sorry if anyone is offended by that, but I think one time I met a quality person off of that, but for the most part, it's like stick your dick in this hole. Like that's what the that's what the whole app is about, and I don't know.
That's
I'm not
got to be
about that.
frustrating for homosexual men in general because they get kind of snowballed into that external. They're already having to mitigate false assumptions, and then they're snowballed into these like you know untrue scenarios where, oh, you're gay, you're on Grinder.
Right,
Nobody's just one thing just because you're gay. You're not on a
right,
default on Grinder. Don't give a crap about where your dick is. It's just not the reality. So
right, right. No, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. I think there's I I like to give a lot. I like to assume positive intent, and
right,
for me, with that app, after a while, I just assumed negative intent. So I realized at that point I should not be on there.
right. You don't
It's
belong.
yeah, I'm not just out to get laid,
Right.
and I think that is probably one of the most frustrating things in general. Because even though I'm 36 years old and I still have a sex drive, getting laid to me is one. I mean, of course, it's exciting, but it's also dangerous nowadays with
Yeah.
the diseases that you can catch. And even though, like, for example, even though HIV is well controlled nowadays, like, I don't want to have a lifelong chronic condition
Yeah.
just because I wanted to go have random sex. It's so bizarre to me that that still happens nowadays, and that people go on. There's a drug called, well, it's not called PrEP, but it's uh, I'm not sure what the drug is called, but there's drugs that prevent people
Oh
from
yeah.
catching HIV or AIDS. And to me, it's I actually so I will share, I went on that for about a month at one point. I was dating, fast forward a couple years, and that was actually earlier this year. On Tinder, I met a different guy that he seemed really cool. Like, I to be honest, so I'm very attracted to men that are men and women that are women. Um, there's, and that's kind of, I know that that's going to be, that'll go over like a lead balloon, right? That statement. But so
Yeah. You're
essentially,
offending somebody all the time, but
yeah,
that's okay. This
some,
is
yeah.
this is get the fuck out of here. That's why you can
It,
do that. It's our podcast, Louie.
exactly, exactly. And for those that didn't understand that, what I mean by that is I'm attracted to women who are feminine, and they exhibit those traits, and men who are more masculine. I know I have my queen please moments, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm a pretty masculine guy. I feel like, um, and so so that's also what I'm attracted to in men, and I don't quite understand the attraction. And this is just speaking for me. I'm not attracted to transsexuals either direction. I feel like there's a lot to be said about tolerance, obviously, but tolerance and being attracted to someone are different things.
Yeah, I
You
think
can't force attraction.
you're basically the quintessential open-minded modern old-fashioned guy. Like
Right.
you're kind of, if there is such a thing, you're basically old-fashioned but super open-minded and obviously fluid. So
Right. Right.
if there
Hey,
is
no,
such a
absolutely.
thing, it's not an anything
Right.
goes. And there when you were speaking of the meaningless hookups, I mean, there's times and places for those and they're exciting. It's almost like tequila, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
it betrays you. So long term, just don't think that's a sustainable lifestyle, but it seems to be you want option A or B. You want to marry and be all tied down, or you want to be having meaningless connections with everyone. So
Right.
discussing our little resumes will be interesting because I love your stories. So go on with the guy this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was February, March, April, that I saw this guy. So it turned into a little bit of a relationship. We connected right away, laughed essentially. Laughter. People people I think make fun of the value of laughter, but if I can't laugh with someone, if I can't connect with someone on that level and be able to have a conversation with them, there will be no attraction. I won't even get aroused, to be honest. They could be freaking Brad Pitt with a ripped body, but if they look down their nose at me, or if they can't have a single fluid thought in their head, then I'm not going to be attracted. Um, and so, so this guy, again, we hit it off right away. It was really a great. We had a lunch date the first time, and we ended up hanging out like basically the rest of the day. We went and saw an exhibit at a museum, and then we ended up going and watching a movie. Um, and we didn't do anything right away. We didn't do anything sexual right away, and it was about, I think it was the second week that we were going out. He told me he was HIV positive. Um, so at that point, I said, "All right, well, you know what? I'll go on PrEP. I want to be able to be intimate with you, um, and I don't want to have fear around it.
Right.
Because there's also a thing where HIV positive men now are essentially what's called undetectable. So the chances of them, if they're undetectable, of spreading a disease or the disease would be really slim at that point. Um,
Okay.
we would have also used condoms when the time came. I think it was kind of this, it was going to be this blanket thing, right? So it did turn into, so we were dating for, like I said, for a long period of time. There were other red flags that started coming up. And without sharing, obviously I'm not going to share his name or anything like that, but he definitely went through some abusive relationships prior to me. There was a moment when he hit me a few times. Just, I think he thought he was playing, but he punched me pretty hard. um, and I had to put, I honestly, I could have kicked his ass pretty easily, but essentially I was like, I don't know what the hell you thought that was, but that was not
You put
okay.
a stop to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna. I don't know who thinks that kind of behavior is okay in
Yeah.
any relationship nowadays, but I don't, and that's not gonna work for me. So,
Right.
um, so he was actually, because I have my kids every other week, he was at my house basically that entire week until that happened. And I was like, all right, peace out, you're going home. And and I got a lot of apologies the next day and whatever, so I
Yeah.
dealt with it.
Was he joking or were you guys fighting?
We weren't
Somewhere in
fighting. It was
between.
like, yeah, it was like we were just kind of hanging out was the weird thing.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I there's a possibility that he had that in a prior relationship where they would start kind of wrestling and being like violent a little bit, and it would lead to fooling around. And I've kind of heard of that before, but I, that's not me. That's, like you said, I'm a little old fashioned, and
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna be Rihanna or Chris Brown,
Yeah.
going into work the next day,
Yeah.
people going, "What happened to you?" Oh, we were just having sex. That's not gonna work for me. So,
Yeah, we're all just
um,
animals. Like that's why it's so horrifying to date today too, is you don't know what you're getting. I mean, it's the complexity of nature and nurture and that battle, and then the modern times technology, the TV exposure, and
yep,
it's horrifying what how we're all a little bit programmed and what you could possibly come across where someone's a saint, but then they pull a knife on you randomly like 2 months into, it's just horrifying, like the possibilities, and it's unpredictable, frankly, because we're all kind of animals.
absolutely, absolutely. It's pretty nuts actually when you think of it that way.
Yeah.
Or the, the programming comment that you made, just that gives me chills. I hate the thought of how easily manipulated we all really are.
Right. With no
But
fault of our own. So even your awareness and compassion when you're in a new, you're really trying to make something work and grasp something real, knowing you came from a monogamous marriage and how comfortable that is. But if it's
right,
not right and that whole choice, well, I could still be in that blanket, which isn't ideal, but it was safe. versus, hey, I'm
Yeah,
gonna try for something real here, and you're getting crazy experiences instead of that safe, you know? It's horrifying.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what ended up happening with this guy is I had this time period where I had my kids for, it turned out, 3 weekends in a row. It was around Easter, and then my ex and I had to swap a week in there, so I had them for these 3 weekends, um, 2 full week periods, and in that time frame, I actually even introduced him to my kids, and that time frame was ending, and we were coming out to this weekend where I wasn't gonna have the kids and then I wouldn't have them for a full week. So I was like, this is gonna be great. We're gonna get to spend a lot of time together. And it was that Friday. It was payday. I was very excited.
Yeah.
I text him. I'm like, let's go out this weekend. Or let's go out tonight. Actually, is what I said. Let's go out. I'll buy you dinner. We can go to a movie. We can do something fun.
Yeah, adult
Um,
time. You know, it's
yeah,
so
adult time.
great to go from mom
Exactly.
or dad mode to like, oh my gosh,
Right.
let's debauchery. Like, I've got money and let's go. It's all about
Yep.
adult time.
Exactly, exactly. I'm like, let's go get drunk, whatever we need to do. And I had even, that was when I had started the prep.
Nice,
The
romantic.
And so I was like, yeah, I was like, all right, this is gonna be the weekend, and it was Friday, and he's like, I just want to go home and spend time alone tonight. And so I texted him back just once and said, this is the first weekend in 3 weeks where I am not dad. Are you telling me I'm going to spend
Yeah.
this Friday alone? and and essentially, I think he responded once and said, yeah, I just and he even asked, is that, yeah, he did ask. He said, is that okay? Yeah, I just want to be alone. And
Wow.
I responded, I said, yeah, I know, right? And I said, no, that's not okay with me. I
No.
am not okay with that. I'm a i'm a dad most of the time, and my time with you is, it's important to me to be able to be a grown up and have that time with another grown
Yeah,
up
he's your
and not be
human.
alone. Yeah, exactly.
And he failed you.
And he did. And so my friend and I, he had some, because we had dated for a few months at this point, so I had a bunch of his shit at my house. So so I put it all in a box, and I texted him. I'm like, your stuff is going to be on your truck.
Good for you.
Um, yeah. And so so we went over and dropped off his stuff, and the next day I get this call from him. He's all pissed off, and I was like,
No.
man, if you wanted to go, to back up and try dating, that's one thing, but I'm not rushing into things again like I did with you. I felt like we did rush it a bit, where we
Yeah.
just clicked right away, though, was the problem. It was a instant kind of connection. So it was a real bummer to me that,
Yeah.
that he turned out like that. And not to say I'm not the perfect person, I'm sure there were days in there where I was a total asshole, but the reality was it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, that's a hard
We
line for
had
you.
Yeah, yeah, it is
And
a hard line for me.
and
Absolutely.
that, if you misread the intensity, that's not your fault. I mean, he had all that
Right.
time to play when you were on kid duty. And
Yeah,
when it came time to
absolutely.
you to get to kind of join the party, he didn't really feel like it. So next.
Right. Exactly, exactly. So that was earlier this year. I've gone on a handful of dates probably since then. Um, I have to say, so there's been so that was a bit of an intense relationship. I had some fleeting ones though that were pretty fun. There's actually one gentleman that I met him in Florida last year. He was really cool. I didn't meet him in Florida. I should back that up. I met him on an app in Albuquerque, and and I forget which app it was. I think it was Scruff. And for for you and for listeners that don't know what that is, it's a little more forgiving of an app.
I instantly think of a
um,
goatee, just so you know.
right, right. And I think maybe originally it was made for like the rougher men,
Ah,
that type of thing. But you can actually go on there and kind of specify who you like what types of guys. And I don't like stereotyping because I don't know where I fit.
you're
Like,
still
am I
figuring
a
it out.
bear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I a bear? Am I a wolf? What's an otter? Like, I don't understand the animal.
You're a
But
hybrid.
I'm a hybrid. I'm a daddy.
Yeah, you're everything.
so so for me anyway, so I met this nice guy. He was only in town. He's finishing his masters, but he was only in town for, I think it was either summer break or like spring break or something at the time. Um, but essentially, he was finishing his masters in what's it called, costuming,
Wow.
right? Yeah. So I was like, wow, you can get a master's in costuming.
Exactly.
It was a very it's very interesting. But he started sending me like pictures of a lot of the work he would do, and and essentially, the plays that he would work on, and the
Wow.
entire cast that he created the costumes for, and things like that. And I was like, wow, this is intense. Like,
That's
this
major
is way
league.
more than I thought it would
Yeah.
be. Yeah. Um, and so he's really cool, and we actually still talk occasionally because like I said, he's at school. We had a pretty cool weekend once. We met in Florida. I had a work thing there, and so he flew down, and we went to Universal Studios together, and
Wow,
essentially just had a
fun.
good. Yeah, it was a fun first date.
Yeah.
um, it was also kind of nerve wracking because it's like, what if we hate each other?
Yeah.
Like,
The
this.
risk.
Yeah. Um, anyway, so yeah, we had fun time, and just really, just really enjoying each other's company, and I have to say, uh, like as time's gone on, my attraction with him has grown a lot. So I don't know what'll happen with him, but and I really don't have a clue because I don't know where he's even in the world right now, to be
Right.
honest. He's funny though. He sends me a random postcard occasionally. Um, for like, he was in Rome last month at one point, and he sent me this postcard from the where does the Pope live?
The Vatican.
the the Vatican. Oh my God, where is my brain today? But yeah, so he sent me this postcard from the Vatican,
So I didn't
and
know you can get a master's in costuming and fly all over the goddamn world either. Who knew that?
uh, oh, he is the stuff he does is incredible, and
He's probably moving
and it's
meth,
really
Louie.
you think.
Or I would think opium up his ass, for sure. There's just no sustainable income with costuming and getting your master's and being able to send you postcards from the Vatican. Come on.
Right. Well,
Louie,
maybe
I'm looking
he
after
like.
you.
No, I hear you. I hear you. There's no commitments happening. I'm not getting
I'm
married. Don't
teasing.
worry. Don't worry.
All right, I'll be quiet. You're right.
No, he's fine. No, it's fine. But, no, but he's a very interesting guy. So, and I have to say, and so there was a very similar situation. So I met this other guy on a different app that I'm not going to talk about that app, but
Come
but it's
on.
essentially, well, it's not a dating app at all. So it was kind of odd. It's kind of an app. Um, you've probably heard of it. It's called Whisper.
No.
You heard of it? No. So you can go on there and kind of put like confessions, or
Oh,
like
neat.
that sounds really like 1990s Cinemax confessions
Speakeasy.
on Whisper.
No, but I'm glad you
But
said what it was so I can expand my mind.
yeah, no, well, yeah, and check it out. I mean, it's kind of funny to go on there, and you can plug through it. I mean, there's a lot of dirty stuff on there. There's a lot of stupid stuff on there. There's a lot of um there's a lot of social justice warriors
Oh,
fighting the fight on there
sure.
in really passive aggressive ways.
Sure, sure. It's better than chat
So
roulette.
it's yeah. Oh no, I've never partaken in that. I don't think I could deal with that. Um The judgment. I can't deal with the judgment. but, but essentially, yeah. So essentially, met this guy um, on this app, and we chatted for probably, I don't know, 3 months. So it would have been like a long con, but it turned out, so he was from New York.
Wow.
Um, yeah, right. So New York City, he lives in Manhattan, and he was a very nice guy. We messaged and video chatted, and actually, so a few years ago on Thanksgiving, I went. I didn't have my kids, and I didn't really want to spend the day with the rest of my family. So, and I've always wanted to see the parade. I've always wanted to see New York. So I took there's a red eye out of Albuquerque, and I stayed with him for essentially, I think, 4 days. Yeah, 4 or 5 days, and he was my tour guide. Took me all over the
Oh,
city. Went to
cool.
the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, it was
You
awesome,
survived.
and I have to say, I'm
You
sorry.
survived.
I survived. It was, yeah. No, and I think that's one of the things, that a difference between men and women. I wasn't really afraid, to go. I and not to say I'm like Mr. Tough Guy, but if I needed to defend myself, I could have.
Yeah,
There wasn't anything shady. There weren't any red
good.
flags going up in my head about him. Yeah,
You got a whole four
it was
days right up close by
yeah,
a native New York Manhattan guy. Wow. That's like a
exactly,
movie,
exactly.
Louie.
It was it was so fun, yeah. Um, and yeah, no, it was a great time. And the funny thing is, though, we both went into it with the intention that it was going to be a fun weekend and we'd be friends, but I was very upfront that we live in totally different, ends of the country essentially,
Right.
and I'm not going to be able to move anytime soon, and he was actually Dominican descent,
Well,
and so he had a very strong family moral compass. So he was very much about staying close to his family too, and the only danger for him was essentially moving back to the Dominican Republic, or I shouldn't say back to, because he was from New York, but you know, but uh, but moving to the Dominican Republic to be closer to some of his other family. So it was, we both went into it with that expectation that nothing was gonna be happening. That it wasn't, um, this wasn't some magical love story. It was going to be a great weekend, and it was a very fun time, um, and again, just a great way to connect with someone, and it was so much time out that the sexual part of our relationship was very, very little. Actually, it was mostly us walking around the city talking and learning about each other's history and what we want to do with our lives, things like that. So it was a great time, actually. I look back on that with a lot of fondness, because it could have been a nightmare. Um, Essentially, I had some backup plans. I have family up there, and I also have a credit card. So, you know,
you had
had I gotten
plans.
there and he was, yeah, exactly. Had I gotten there and he was crazy, I could have easily gone down, and gotten a hotel room and
Nice.
figured it out. But it worked out great. So,
And that's that middle of
um,
the road, right? Like that whole philosophy of I don't believe in marriage, but I believe in having as many good and positive experiences like as I can, taste as many cool things, see as many cool things, have great new friends and excitement versus hook up, go away, don't know you. Like that was right there in the middle.
right,
Like you don't have the expectations. There's this freedom of being present. And I have a hard
right,
time adjusting to that, at least when I was dating, and we'll get into that on part two. But it's tricky because you can get addicted to those little episodes, if you will, that have a little bit of meaning and connection, but are essentially not going to go anywhere. And so it's super tricky these days.
yep, you're absolutely right. So essentially, the one of the other things I wanted to talk about was, there's this need, I think, from both a man and woman standpoint for sugar daddies. Um, and I don't, and to me, that's a very interesting concept because I am a father, right? And I have two kids that I have to take care of,
Yeah.
and I say it like that. I have to take care of, but I want to take care of them too.
Yeah.
I want them to grow up with things that I didn't have and to have luxuries that I didn't have.
Yeah. It's your purpose.
Um, yeah, it's my purpose exactly. Essentially, the I can't even count the number of first dates I had in the last 5 years where it was someone that acted like, oh yeah, I want to do this and this and this, and and essentially like they actually had a goal in their brain, that they had things they wanted to do, and then we get out on a date, and this goes again, men and women, and all of a sudden they just want a bunch of stuff.
Huh.
They there it becomes this, oh yeah, we could go on vacation over here and we can do this, and I'm like, oh wow, did you get a really cool job that you didn't tell me about?
Are you
Because
paying for this? Yeah. Are you
yeah,
finding
yeah,
that
because
you're
I'm like,
paying for most of the dates? First
oh
date?
absolutely, like with those with that group of individuals, absolutely. um I think there's a mix of dates, and I'll talk about some other, like how you'll never get a call back from a gay man.
Nice.
um, but but essentially, I I'm not sure if it's more or less frustrating when a young person wants a sugar daddy, or if they want to act like they're super old and wise. Um, and I'll give you give you an example. And again, I couldn't believe how many times it happened. So essentially, I was out on dates with several people, men or women, and they would say, "Oh yeah, I know I'm only like 22, but essentially, I raised my younger sibling."
Hmm.
And to me, that was at first I was like, "Oh, that's really admirable. That's great." So, so how did you do that? What was the age difference? And Fia, every single time, it was like 2 years. So I'm going, well, making a bowl of cereal for your younger sibling isn't raising them. That's not raising a child. That is taking care of your younger sibling. you know, it cracked me up so bad because it happened several times. Finally, one of the last times, I actually told I think it was a young man, and I was like, "Oh yeah, so when your little brother was sick, did you uh, essentially hold him and rock him, and when he's vomiting down your back and you're trying to soothe him and not feel like you're gonna vomit yourself, like did you deal with all that?" And it kind of shook him a little bit.
Yeah.
uh, because because essentially that's being a
Yeah.
parent.
Not the same thing.
you know
Paying the
yeah,
bills,
being
like
there,
making sure they have
right, yeah,
toothpaste. Being the
exactly,
latchkey kid
doing
that's the
all
older sibling or younger taking care of the
right.
older is not the same thing.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like it's an epidemic of people thinking, like overthinking about what they did. My sister would make me a bowl of cereal sometimes, or she would make me snacks. She never claimed to have raised me.
Right.
It's like
Well, you don't know. Maybe
it's a
she does
joke.
behind your back to get a free ride.
Oh yeah, that could be. That could be. That could be. Maybe that's how she landed her wife, right?
Yeah. Triple cow cow land.
uh, but
Fixed it.
so I thought that was an interesting thing. One of the things that I also found, I found in dating that is absolutely weird is there's so many couples nowadays that, and it's nothing against open relationships or poly relationships. I don't think they work from my perspective. And I don't think I could ever do that
Yeah.
uh, effectively. it is it if you're in a relationship, you're in a relationship. And and I'm not judging people. Like, if you have two people that you love and they love each other too, and you all three want to have a relationship and have a house, cool, go for it. I don't
A
care to be
thruple.
honest. That's not.
A
I'm sorry.
thruple.
A throuple, yes, exactly. But I mean, um, you watch what's it called, the Chicago
Shameless.
family. That's all. You watch Shameless,
Tons,
right?
yes.
So the throuple doesn't work out on there. It's I feel like it doesn't really
Well, I'll
work
speak to
in
that
general.
in part
So
two. I'm an expert on all that, so it'll
okay,
be interesting to talk about. But you're right, there's an epidemic. Like, you're online and everybody's married and dating, so it's got to be annoying when you're actually looking for someone special just for
yeah,
you.
right, right. I feel like it's like it's this weird thing that's happening because I guess I look at it from my perspective of, I'm single and I can't seem to
Yeah,
find, maybe it's jealousy is
it
what
is.
it is, like I can't seem to find my match.
Yeah, and then people are out there
And
double and tripling up with beautifully, or like
yeah,
making it work. But yeah,
yeah,
it's wild out
right,
there.
right. And, and I can talk about this more when we dive back into marriages
Hmm.
too, but, because at the end of my marriage, there was some weirdness there
Yeah,
with, and I don't know if it's weirdness, but it was definitely not gonna work.
yeah,
But anyway, so I feel like there's a lot of couples out there. I would say for gay men, there's more couples that seem to want to play
yeah,
together than anything
yeah.
else. Um, and I use play literally, like they're not
I
looking for anything
know.
but that fun time.
Yes.
um, and I think that was one of the things. So I did meet up with this one couple at one point. They they lived nearby and very nice people in general. Um, and the the older man in the couple, I say older. He wasn't like 80. He was probably in his late
Yeah.
40s. Um, but essentially, he kept saying like, "Oh, I love being gay," like, and talking about how being gay, you can just do whatever you want sexually. You're so free sexually that you don't need barriers on what you do. So to me, it was very presumptuous that just because I came over once to meet up with them that oh yeah, let's all do
Yeah.
this whenever we
Yeah.
want. I don't know. I just find it odd that the presumptions made based on your sexuality nowadays are so ingrained in
Yeah.
and he was a gay man, so that was how he saw himself,
Yep.
that he could do whatever he wanted, and his partner was super nice as well. They're again very nice couple, but it went again. It wasn't like it was a date. It wasn't like it was gonna go anywhere.
Right.
But there's that kind of couple all
Oh
over the
yeah.
place. And so one time, so this is how you're not going to get a call back from a gay man, is essentially if you meet them for a drink and they pay and they insist on paying, they're gone. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's very weird. I remember meeting up with this one guy. He was actually one partner in a couple, right?
Huh.
So it's a very nice guy. Um, and they were actually looking for a third, right? And they were like, "Oh, and you have kids? That'd be cool." And like I was like, "Yeah, that let's not count our chickens before they hatch here." That was that. I'm like, that's way down the road. We'll have to revisit that, but but they I met one of them for a drink. He was a nice guy, but honestly couldn't carry a conversation.
Uh,
And yeah, it was kind of
so you
sad
paid for the drink
actually.
and left.
Yeah, so he's like, "Oh, I gotta go," and then he paid for the drinks, and he's like, "Peace out." And I think one of the hardest things nowadays, and he did this to me. And it just kind of happens regularly, I think, to everyone nowadays, is the ghosting
Uh,
thing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's, if you're not man enough to say, hey, you're not my type, it's been nice, but thank you. Like, what's the deal with that? Like, you can't just back up and say, you know, sorry, you're not my type, or, "Oh, you're not quite, who I don't feel attraction to you." I don't know, there's got to be a nice way of putting
Yeah.
it, right? That you don't have to fight over it, or it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be this message that goes off into the darkness, right? And I have two more examples of this quickly, because I do want to move on to one final kind of weird topic, without this dragging on too much longer. Um, but essentially, with two other guys that I had one. So um, I actually, people will make fun of this, but I actually really liked
Uh-huh.
Craigslist, uh, doing ads, because one, I didn't put pictures on Craigslist. I would do a description of what I'm looking for, who I am, and and my life and my status, who what I'm where I'm going, things like
Nice.
that. And I would actually get some quality dates out of that. Nothing, obviously, nothing that stuck. And I don't know if you know this, but Craigslist ads, personal ads, have actually been
No, I
shut
didn't
down.
know.
Um, yeah, I don't know when
Probably
that
Craigslist
happened
killer. Ruined
necessarily.
it for everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's been killers all over the place. I think, there's Uber
True.
killers, and there's,
It's always a
there's
killer to
cab
just kill it.
killers, and yeah, killer killed it. All right. All right. I can accept that. I can accept that. But so I, I, um, I met this one guy that he was super nice. Again, I know I keep saying super nice about some of these guys. Clearly, I'm not a good judge of
Right.
character.
Yeah.
But he seemed like such a cool guy. We met up, and I don't usually meet up at my house, right? Because I don't feel like that's a safe thing to do. Uh, Against my better judgment, we did meet at my house, and we had a drink, and I felt like he seemed like a pretty nice guy. Again, um, I wasn't too worried about it, but we ended up talking for 5 hours or something ridiculous like that, 5 or 6 hours. And towards the end of the conversation, I turned to him, like, I'm like, okay, so I'm falling asleep now. Let's do are you ready to go? And essentially, we hugged, and we had each other's contact information. I then messaged him like the next day at some point. It's not like it was 6
Right.
a.m. or anything. I messaged him, later in the day, and again,
That's
ghosted. I
exhausting.
was like, I listened to you.
That's
I'm sorry.
exhausting.
What'd
You
you say?
hit it off and then they fall off
It
the
was so
planet. It's
exhausting.
exhausting.
Exactly. Like, why did we talk for six
You'll
hours?
never get
Like,
those 6 hours
why?
back.
Why did I
And
listen
you'll
to
never,
you?
it's just not, it's
Yeah.
just unethical.
Yeah. If you weren't interested at hour one, you could have
Yeah.
said, "Oh, hey, I gotta go," and
Yeah.
you leave. you know, I I didn't need 6 hours of your dissertation on parenting, and
Yep.
you know, and to be honest, it was, like I said, it was good conversation, and so he seemed like a quality guy. So it was just such a bummer that he disappeared. And but so the last one that I want to talk about today was actually, it was fairly recent. I met a guy on Tinder. He was, to be honest, I thought he was catfish, because when I opened the app, and he was very good looking. It looked like a couple of his pictures were
Hmm.
model pictures. Um, and so I was like, all
Yeah.
right, so this guy's fake. That's not real. And then he messaged me a couple times. He's like, oh, come over. And I said, I'm not interested in hooking up. That's not what I do. I like to, if we're gonna meet, we're gonna have a date. I'm not doing that. I'm
Yeah.
36. I'm not, you know. screwing around at this point. Um, and so he continued to message me a couple more times, and then one day he's like, "Oh, do you want me to come down? We can have dinner." Because he lived in Santa Fe. Probably still, I'm sure he still lives in Santa Fe. So we met up for dinner at a place kind of closer to my house, and that weekend I'd put in uh, a home theater platform in my
Wow.
house, right? And so I was showing him pictures of it, and yeah, so it was really exciting to to show off, one, like, this is something I
Nice.
do home improvement. And he seemed, yeah, and he seemed interested. He's like, oh, that's cool, I want to see it. And at that point I should have said, oh, well, this was a great first date, have a nice time, or I had a nice time, see you later. And and then but essentially I let him invite himself over, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine. You can come and look at it, and we can watch a movie, or something along those lines if you want. Um, then so he came over, and I showed him the platform that I built, and how it looked with the furniture on it. We he then grabbed me, and we started making out a little bit. It was an interesting thing because I wasn't super attracted to him, because I felt like he was a little conceited for me. His attitude was a little out there, not not out there in bad ways, but just kind of had interesting angles on things. And so it turned out, so we we talked about whatever was going on, and then we would make out a little bit more, um and I think in my head, and my friend, the gay friend I mentioned earlier, pegged this. Essentially, I was looking for some sort of validation, and this was actually, I think, the first date since the other guy earlier this year that we broke up. So it's been about
Wow.
3 months, 4 months, I guess, since I really had dated. And so so then it starts getting a little intense, and he he's got really aggressive, and we started, and took off my clothes, and yeah, I mean, it was very aggressive, and I kind of froze at this point, right? Like, I didn't really understand, why I was doing this, and
Yeah.
why this was happening. And he pretty violently, you know we had anal sex. It was very violent, actually. And I froze through it, and
Yeah.
it was wrong, and yeah, and it hurt a lot. And I kept saying, stop, I don't want to do this, I'm not ready for this with you, and it it was really, I wouldn't necessarily call it rape,
Yeah.
because I was saying no, but there was this part of me that was wanting this
Yeah.
validation from him, and part of me wanting this to move forward in some sort of relationship, because I thought well, no, I didn't think he was a
Yeah.
good person. I guess, like I said before, he
Yeah.
wasn't that attractive, but uh, it was so embarrassing, though, like, this moment. And he finished, and then he's like, all right, I gotta
Yeah.
go. And
Wow.
I was like, what? Like,
That's like
this
processing
piece of shit,
everything, your
this
whole
fucking
being.
piece of
You can't
shit.
even process it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. And so I let him out of the house, and I was just glad it
yeah.
was over, to be honest. I learned a very valuable lesson at that point, I think. And I guess I
Yeah.
said that I wouldn't call it rape, but I
Probably.
would,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. It was, yeah, it was not what I wanted. He knew it wasn't my intention. he knew it's not what
But he
I
took it
wanted to
anyway.
do with my life, you know, and yeah, and I got to be honest. So at this point in my life, you know, after going through that and processing through it, like you just said, I my attraction towards again, like I said, I thought there were some of his pictures that were model-esque. My attraction towards people that look
They're
like
all
that
predators
is
now. You're
gone.
not buying
I
it.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
there's a danger in that, you know, that there's this danger in people who think they can take what they want because they're pretty, or you know, whatever their deal is, or because they're
arrogant
horny,
and
or what, you know,
narcissistic
again,
and
it's
predatory.
yeah, exactly,
No,
exactly. It's not okay, and it's not okay that they think they can do that. And so you know, I've reached this point where I you know, and I was pretty much on this path, and where it's been where I'm more attracted to the person for a while, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, but you know, there's certain things I'm attracted to, and this has definitely turned it on for me that one, any quality relationship isn't going to come out of fucking Tinder.
yeah, fuck
Fuck
Tinder.
that app. like that app is ridiculous. You know, it's um and you know, and so for me, I want to meet people through
Networking.
normal means now, and you know, yeah. One of the best things about when I met my ex-wife was we did meet through friends. You know, we even though it was a long time
Yeah,
ago and we were kids basically when we met, that was the best way to find out, you know,
yeah,
to find out about someone, you know, to really talk to them and to learn who they are. I can't imagine doing
you're
anything
done.
again on like an app like that.
Modern dating ruling
Yeah. I
Louie style as it is, and you're done.
is
It's
it's fucked up.
networking.
It's
Just like
over.
remember your very first good
Yeah,
experience after separating was networking. All signs point to
exactly.
networking. And you know, if you don't
Exactly.
know people or you don't want to go that route, there's meetups where you can get involved in hobbies with like-minded individuals. It doesn't have to be hooking up.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I this predication of the gay male, you know, whore essentially
Yeah,
is fucking ridiculous. I'm over it. You know, and I think that it's too common at this point. It's this ridiculous thing that you know, that so many gay men embrace, that oh, they can just fuck whatever
yeah,
they want whenever they want to do it. And that's not me. I don't want to do that. You know, uh, I can have
exactly.
amazing
And
orgasms
it's
by
safe.
myself, to be honest. You know, yeah. I don't need some jackass to be, you know, to make my
I
ass
wonder how many
bleed, or you know, I mean,
I
that's
wonder
really
how many
vivid, but
closeted hashtag Me Too men are out there. Not to like shit on the Me Too movement, but
right.
this is happening to men too. Like there are men in
No,
Hollywood and in the workplace getting
absolutely it
exploited
is.
by straight, attractive, not attractive people of power, men, hetero, homo, whatever. And
Yep.
you know, even Catholic priests, you know, hashtag Me Too. It's all over the place. Men, women, none of us are unscathed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, so I wanted to thank everyone for listening to my modern dating experiences and where I've essentially landed over the last 5 years. I think that I hope that this was an entertaining listen,
I think
and
it
I hope that
was. I
it's
loved
relatable
it.
as well. So, yeah, cool. Thank you all, and I look forward to
Thanks,
talking next
Louie.
time. Thanks, Via.